Welcome back. So far, it's been a relatively quiet news day. So here's your news board for this morning, and we're going to talk about how we're going to start off with Steve Dangle jinxing Ian Scott. Tweeted out that Scott was playing well, and he's right. Scott was playing well. That was on my review board as well. And then he ends up leaving the game, and it looked like it was just an equipment issue, probably like a skate or something, but groin injury. So Ian Scott, one of those players who through training camp and a preseason might be able to impress and show, hey, I've still got that NHL upside. Now he's out with the groin injury, and we don't know how long he's going to be out. But that's tough. And there are players who training camp and the preseason means a lot, and not really for the veteran players we're all watching. Which is why when I watch these games, I'm actually more focused on the fringe players, your fourth liners, and I'm also really interested in how the young players do. For Toronto last night, for instance, every time Dargan Cheensev was on the ice, I was keeping an eye on where he was, his positioning, and all that. So I keep an eye on that kind of thing when I'm watching the games in the preseason. Because again, the veterans, it doesn't matter if they play well or if they play terribly. They're on the team. So, yeah, there you go. Seattle plays tonight. Now, Vegas played Vancouver in their first ever preseason. I'm pretty sure it was their first ever preseason game here in Vancouver. And Vegas destroyed Vancouver. It was awful. As a Canuck fan to watch that was terrible. And I remember thinking, but it's just preseason, it doesn't mean anything. And then Vegas went on to have a very good year, and Vancouver didn't. Now, Seattle tonight is icing basically their NHL roster, mostly. Alexander Wenberg is off right now for the birth of his child, so congratulations to him and his fiancée. And so the lines of practice this morning showed they're going to have a very heavy NHL feel to this team, whereas the Canucks, because half the team has gone down to Spokane, half the team is going to be ready for tomorrow night's game against the Flames. It's going to be interesting to see how this game turns out, right? So for Seattle, their lines are in practice as follows: Eberle, McCann, and Schwartz. Johansson or Johansson, and again, he goes back and forth. Marcus Johansson or Johansson goes back and forth on whether it's the hard J or the soft J, and he needs to knock it off. So Johansson, because that's what he's used the last couple of teams. Johansson, Yarncroke, and Appleton on another line. Donato, Geeky, and Donskoy, and Tanev, Bastian, and Sheahan. And you can already kind of see that if there's a player who might have a William Karlsson light type season, and that he's a player who, in Karlsson's case in Columbus, he really wasn't getting that chance. Goes to Vegas, has a fantastic year. The guy who might be the one to do the same for Seattle, again, I say light because I don't think we're going to have a 40-goal scorer on this team, but Morgan Geeky could be one to watch. On a line with Donskoy and Donato. Donato could be one to watch as well. There are going to be stories out of Seattle this year with guys who score 20 goals, guys who score 40, 45 points, who are nowhere near that with their teams over the last couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how these lines end up performing. But again, for Vancouver, sending down half the team, having the other half stay here, I would expect Seattle probably wins the game tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch either way. But yeah, it's on the list too. It looks like it's going to be Drieger. It's going to be Grubauer playing the game. I don't know if they're going to give the full game to one goalie or the other, or if it's going to be half and half. Preseason's weird that way. Some coaches will just give a goalie the full game. Some will do the half and half split. But we'll see what they do. So yeah, a little bit of Seattle hype for everybody. For the Kings, a little bit of hype is building now for Quinton Byfield. Byfield did not have a good rookie tournament. And again, this is why, and I mentioned this, the rookie tournaments happen and people get really excited or they get really concerned. And then we get into training camp and then that changes. Then we get to the preseason, it changes again. And then in the regular season, we see what really is the case of who's going to be the new big stars and who's going to make it. And in Byfield's case, it looks like, according to Coach Todd McClellan, he's playing a lot better than he did during the rookie showcase, rookie tournament. And so it looks like he's trending towards absolutely making their roster, which he's supposed to anyways, right? This should be his time. And we'll see what kind of prominent role he plays for the Kings. How well the Kings play this year is really going to depend a lot on how far along their young star players are. If some of their young star players can excel and play really well, the Kings could be a dark horse to make the playoffs. Out of San Jose, so I'm wearing a San Jose Tiburones jersey. These are always fun. These are like promo night jerseys that they throw together, so they're not like real Adidas or anything, but they're fun little jerseys. So glad I have them. But yeah, Jonathan Dahlen will be looking to be wearing one of these the next time they have one of those theme nights. He is looking to earn a job at 23. Jonathan Dahlen is an interesting case because he was in Vancouver, didn't play for the Canucks, so he ended up in the minors. And so he's had a hard time making that jump. And this might be his last best chance. The San Jose Sharks absolutely need more forwards who can drive the play. And if Dahlen is capable of doing that, if he impresses in training camp and into the preseason, he should win a job. And at 23, this might very well be his last chance at a regular job in the NHL. Because again, at some point in time, teams will decide, okay, these are our prospects. These are the young guys that we're coveting, and we've tried, but at this point, you're 24, and yeah, these guys are 18, so there's more of a chance of getting them. So that does happen. Where eventually you're not seen as a prospect, you're seen as a project, and it can be hard to get out of that status and get that break. Because again, teams will tend to gravitate towards the younger prospects and probably the higher draft picks too. So we'll see what happens with Dahlen in camp for San Jose. San Jose expectations are pretty low this year, so we'll see how things go with no expectations on the Sharks as well. Out of Islanders land, Barry Trotz is impressed with Ratu. So Ratu dropped in the draft down to what, 52? 52 is where he gets drafted. And he's very impressed with him, and he thinks he's a Zach Parise type. So I don't think Ratu necessarily makes the team this year, but he's impressed the coach. And if you impress Barry Trotz, you have an excellent chance of getting on the roster. Yeah, we'll see what happens in the preseason. We'll see if he manages to maybe work his way into a job. But you have to think with the amount of veterans in New York and with the amount of players that they've got signed that it would be very difficult for a young kid out of this year's draft to make the team. So he's probably going to end up in the minors, end up going back to Europe, wherever he ends up playing. And next year might be the year where Ratu finally gets a chance to show all of the general managers around the NHL that they were wrong and they should have drafted him sooner. That anger can be pretty strong when a player gets drafted below where they think they should be. Out of last night's game between St. Louis and Minnesota, which was won by the Blues 6-2, the biggest storyline might be the hat trick for James Neal. So as I've mentioned, the guys on tryouts, the pressure on them to perform is higher. So last night we saw with Josh Hosang, I think what might have been one of the best games he's played wearing an NHL uniform. And again, he's on a tryout. He wants to prove that he can make it. So there's definitely more motivation for these players. James Neal, also on a tryout, likely earned himself a role with the St. Louis Blues. I would think that they're going to sign him. I'd be kind of surprised if they don't. And yet, there have been players who played very well in preseasons on a tryout that end up not making the team. And it could be that situation where you say, you know what, this guy should be in top 6 minutes to play at his best. We don't have a room for him in the top 6. And we don't think he works in the bottom 6 either. So we'll see where James Neal ends up. But I would think St. Louis probably signs him. And, we'll see how things go for St. Louis this year. So there you go. More St. Louis news. Because that's kind of how this works now. Blues news. So, yeah. And then I get the Blues Clues song stuck in my head. So it's this whole other thing. But anyways, there you go. News of the day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.